Hi there. Good morning to our friends in the Philippines. It's 9 a.m. on a Tuesday there, and it's 6 p.m. here in the United States. Good evening, good early evening to our friends here in the U.S. as well. And welcome to my second Ginang White Science Online webinar. And today I'm really honored because I'll be joining forces with three of my colleagues from Magnolia Science Academy to share with you some of our best practices in our online classrooms that we've used during distance learning since March. So we're not going to waste any more time. I'm going to call in my friends today. And I have Miss Beck, Mrs. Reyes, and of course, once again, Mrs. Watkins. Hi!
Hi, everyone.
Guys?
Kumusta?
Kumusta? How are you guys doing?
I'm learning.
Yeah, true. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. I'm doing good.
Great. Has there been a delay today? How's Father's Day?
It was really nice.
Really nice. Cool. That's nice. Well, we're here. We're finally here. We're done with distance learning, but I'm sure there's something ahead of us pretty soon. But I just wanted you guys' sharing of your experiences to our Filipino educator friends who's going to embark that journey as well that we did since March. So that's actually our goal today, for us to share what we went through. Well, we're going to focus on, some of the best things that our students did in the classroom, in our online classroom, and also, some of the strategies that we felt like worked well with us, right? Yeah? You ready for this? Yeah? Okay, well, before we start, I actually wanted to say hi to our friends in the Philippines. Hi, Erwin. Good morning.
Thanks for saying hi to us, too. Hello.
Yes. I also, who else is here? Oh, hi. I have Asian Pop. Good morning. Good morning, Claire. I also have Tanny. Is it Tanny? Hi there. Good morning from Negros Occidental. So that's down south of the map. I hope I'm right, but yes. Good morning and good evening. Yes, thank you. Looking forward to math. So, Mrs. Beck, that's for you. I'm so happy that you guys made it today, and I'm really, really happy that you guys are joining forces with me to help our Filipino educator. That's the number one goal of why I put up these webinars for our teachers, because I felt like our experiences in Magnolia Science Academy and as teachers here is important. So I'm just happy. Is there a feedback right now? Okay. Yeah. 1 second. Okay, there you go. Is it happening? Okay. That's a part of a live show. Okay. That's
technology. Sometimes that happens.
Right? Sometimes it happens, but oh well. Well, thank you very much for tuning in for everybody. And we're not going to waste any more time. So we are going to see you, Mrs. Beck and Mrs. Reyes, because we're going to start first with science with Mrs. Watkins. Yay!
See you later.
It's our turn, girl.
All right.
All right. So, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Miss Beck?
I was playing Mario Odyssey with my son earlier, and so I was like, my head is still over there, but I'm ready to go. So, best practices. Let's
Again, these are just some of our ideas, friends in the Philippines. We're all learning and growing as we go along. And if some of the things that we did, you can learn from and hopefully use that to get to a better place quicker,
Yeah,
please feel free to learn from us, ask us questions. We're here for you.
exactly. And best practice, these are some strategies, activities, and methods that we thought worked well with our students, and we are
Yes,
going to share the highlights of the activities that we thought our students enjoyed the most and they've engaged the most. And
right.
our hopes is that you will be able to use these strategies and activities that we will share with you today. So that's our goal today. But before we start, quick intro for both of us, for me and Mrs. Watkins. So here we are, Watkins and White. Both of us are almost like 20 years in education, really. And we're part of Magnolia Science Academy, Magnolia Public Schools. And both of us are teaching science, 7th and 8th grade science. And we're both involved with education from master's, doctorate, and of course, we are also affiliated with some um, places like San Diego Festival of Science and Engineering, right? And also, I'm a certified online blended teacher for San Diego County of Education, and we are ready to share whatever we have today.
And again, just with this fun fact, this is how Mrs. White and Mrs. Watkins met. We met at a conference learning about CSS. So talk to the people in the chat. You might meet somebody or meet a new friend or have a different contact. You guys can keep in touch. And so a year later, when I interviewed at the school, I was like, wait a second, I think I know you.
I spilled juice on you on the conference. So yes. Yeah. Well, and then that's where the story began. All right. So here's what we're going to be sharing with everybody today. We're going to share our weekly structure, activities and strategies that engage our students. We also have used some video resources, both created and curated. We're also going to look into some performance task approaches that we included in one of the two activities that we're going to share today, some collaboration activities, and of course, some challenges that we encountered along the way as we craft our high quality activities for our students for the past 10 weeks of our distance learning since March. Right? So, our school's using Google Classroom, and Google Classroom, all our class periods are there. School-wide, that's what we're using. Hopefully next week you can join me so I can have a tour of my Google Classroom, as well as how I integrate Google Classroom with different learning platform. But save that until next week, because Number Bender and I will be teaming up. He's going to do the Monday webinar and I'll do the Tuesday webinar with all of you, because it's going to be a merging of those two webinars that you guys will learn a whole lot. Content, video content creation, and at the same time, integration of the learning platform. So watch out on that. But this is what we're using in our school, and it has worked well even before distance learning. So just a side note, we've been using Google Classroom to support our face-to-face class, apart from using this. So we have in-class activity and we have Google Class activity even before distance learning. Okay, so this is the weekly structure of our classroom that students used when we started distance learning. So on a Monday, we do synchronous or asynchronous lessons. So synchronous lesson is the Zoom live session that we hold at a certain time, a time slot on a Monday. So normally for 8th grade science, it's 9 in the morning. 7th grade is a different day. So this is for an 8th grade class. But pretty much our science classes is structured the same way. Right, Mrs. Watkins? So I think you just flip-flop the Monday to Wednesday for 7th grade, right?
Exactly. And we'll talk about that on a later slide. But
Yes.
basically, we tried to keep a similar format among the different grade levels so that way we could jump into each other's classes or provide support. And also, if some families have multiple children, we didn't want them to be on the computer at the same time or have a conflict with their schedule.
Yes, that's right. And Monday, apart from the live lesson, we have a discussion post that we post on that day itself. Usually it's based on the lesson that we presented in the synchronous lesson presentation, or asynchronous, which is a recorded just in case the kid missed that session for the day. And that's usually our Monday. Now, if you're familiar with the 5E model of lesson, that's actually the flow of our structure, from engaging the students with what the topic is for the week, and they will explore it. Following day, Tuesday, we call that Station Lab, which we'll be talking about today. And these are some, I'll talk about that. I'm not going to say it right now, but this is the flow. Station Lab, discussion post on Wednesday, and then usually they do brain pop or ed puzzle. I'm sure many of you guys have heard ed puzzle as a learning resource platform. And then by Thursday, students will continue learning about the topic. And then by Friday, that's when we do either a formative assessment using quizzes or a Google form, and or if they want to demonstrate what they learned, they either use Flipgrid or Padlet. Padlet
Right.
is the most is what I mostly use. And again, I will talk about that next week when we integrate these learning resource platform. But we are going to focus on the activities, the two activities that we felt like our students were engaged very much, because it's fun, they've learned a lot, and we'll be sharing that with all of you. But we'll start first with Mrs. Watkins. The most fun things that we normally do. So Mrs. Watkins and I, we are Watkins and White. And when we started our Zoom live session in school, I actually started by myself, right? And it was like the very first day of distance learning. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do the live session by myself, and let's see how it goes. But after the second week, Mrs. Watkins, both her and I were actually creating video lessons together. And that's what we come up with, Watkins and White. So we tag team creating that lesson for our students, for the live audience that we have on a specific day. So in this case, the 8th grade is Mondays, and then the 7th grade is Wednesdays. And we came up with our video lessons. So we create that. So are we going to do that still? I think.
I hope so. I really liked doing it. It's
Yeah.
like what we're doing right now, but instead of teaching you guys, we would just be teaching our students. So it's both of us on here at the same time talking about the content. She might introduce a topic, I might finish it, I might introduce, she might finish it. But having someone to be able to back and forth with, I think really makes it a little bit more engaging and fun for the kids.
That's true. Yeah, it's kind of like a talk show, right? When we were doing our live sessions, it was fun, because if there's a question that you want to ask your students and nobody want to answer, someone's gonna have your back. But that's good. That's one thing. But we also use some curated video lessons for our students. We don't want to reinvent the wheel when there are good resource of videos that you can have your students watch. So it's better for us to kind of like curate some of these videos. So I just named a few. I have Professor Dave's Explains, Amoeba Sisters for Biology, Crash Course channel. They have good stuff, and it's short, it's sweet, and it explained the topic, in a concise way. So these are some information that our students might need if we're not available, to suggest some video lessons that you can suggest them, right? So that's for asynchronous. Now, we want to share with you how we actually do some collaboration approaches for our students, even if they don't see each other face to face, and they still get to respond to each other. So that's where discussion posts come in. So we use curated videos for students to respond to a prompt. So in this example that we have, so I'm just gonna
play a little clip.
yeah. Well, before we do, let's just put a full screen. So this is a discussion post that I posted May about electromagnetic spectrum. This is a YouTube video, which is a music video of singing about electromagnetic spectrum, and the students will listen to it and then respond to a prompt, and then they're also encouraged to provide feedback to their classmates' posts. So that's that. But this one though is this video that I have here is my top one music video that my students loved so much because it's new. The song is rap, and everybody loves rap. So I just wanted to show you a sample music video lesson that we have been using for a while now. So let's listen to it. See, I was out actually dancing. I was far over there in the background, Miss Watkins. But yes, we use music lesson video for our students to listen, and we actually just started using this method of having our students engage into the topic just this school year. We started back in September. Right, Mrs. Watkins, when you say maybe students like to...
Oh, I didn't say maybe. I said they like
I know, right?
I like singing them little songs every once in a while. But again, sometimes Mrs. Watkins' voice isn't the best, or sometimes Mrs. Watkins'
I know, right?
But you can do a combination of the two. Maybe your kids would like seeing you sing a song, or maybe you can find a song that relates. But I started doing it in my class with the 7th graders. And then Mrs. White was like, why are your kids humming? Why are they singing? Let me try that too. And so we started helping each other find songs that we could collect that relate to our content. And that leads into the next topic, actually.
Yes. But before that, I just wanted to shout out to Jam Campus. So that's where I usually get my music lesson video, and Mr. Parr. And I even have a playlist on my YouTube channel for that, because I know that students will feel engaged as they, before you know it, they're actually singing along the hallways, right? Which is fun, So apart from that discussion post, Mrs. Watkins would like to share the STEAM media. So take it away, because this is your alley.
Yeah, so STEAM media is just another fun way to connect science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics to their media, to their real world, to what's happening in their life. And so this is another way to call the discussion post in science, just to bring that engage and an opportunity for them to discuss about it at the same time. So I have a post here at the beginning of the week. The posts are due, they post them on Monday. We have them due on Wednesday, so that way they can talk about the topic before we come to class. So they have not seen me yet. They just get to see 2, 3, maybe 4 videos at the most. And then they would watch the videos and then summarize it. And I like to say 5 sentences. So give me a 5-sentence summary. What were your favorite statements? What was a quote? What did it make you think of? What do you wonder? And the examples on the right-hand side here, you can see that different students explain themselves in different ways. Some use complete sentences. Some use bullet points. Some use just numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And some of the students explained a lot, and some of them explained a little. But I thought this was a great opportunity for them to connect to the content and really help see how that relates to their own life and start to talk about it before we get to the lecture component of it.
Yes, exactly. So that's like the start of a conversation in terms of the topic that we are
I
learning.
like that you said conversation, Mrs. White, because when they're online, you know, other than when we see them in our live session, if they come to that, this is a great way for them to discuss and interact with the content
Yes.
among themselves. So they're having conversations without the teacher and just talking back and forth, maybe texting, maybe sharing videos, maybe talking about that. So they're thinking about it 48 hours before I give them content on it. So it's
Yeah.
a way to get their brain going.
Exactly, which will lead them to want to explore a little bit more about the topic, right?
We hope
So,
so. That's what we hope.
yeah. And so we have innovated this station lab, as we call it. And before I explain this, this is actually we didn't create this, but Chris Kessler, he's a science teacher from Texas who put these together. And we found that it is very beneficial for our students to use this approach that he actually created, and we innovated it in such a way that fits to our students' needs, because it uses multiple ways of for students to learn the content and the topic that you're teaching. And at the same time, there are different ways the students can also demonstrate what they learn. So the station lab has different stations. Let's read, watch, research, sing, explore, experiment, or demo, organize,
Right.
write,
Draw,
illustrate, assess,
assess, reflect.
and
Yep.
reflect. Yes, that's right. And each of these will just give you an example of what each of these station look like. Again, we crafted what worked from our students based on what Chris Kessler shared. He actually has a membership, so we are members of his subscription of his materials and all that, and we're happy to kind of like have you see how it looks like, and maybe consider making it your own and innovate on it. So these are the station labs that students do. So let's watch has to do with having them watch a YouTube video, and then they will respond to questions. Let's read. There's a reading passage that students would answer. It's kind of like a reading comprehension type of.
It's a great way to connect literacy to science or literacy to any of your subjects that you're doing.
Yes. So this is kind of like the literacy skills that students can develop using these two stations. Next, the Let's Research is another way that they could, of course, develop that research skills. So they go to a website and then they answer the prompt, in this case, to find different examples for each type of symbiosis. So this is actually like a station lab for symbiosis. That's a topic. Now we added this one station card, which is the Let's Sing. So students will watch and listen to the music video, and then they will answer the prompt. So here's an example. I'm just gonna play it quickly.
I know what it means. Symbiosis instead of disease. If you still think that after all this time, then I beg you please start paying attention in class, or at least listen up now to this song. I'm not drizzy, but I still can't throw it down.
Yeah, there you have it. Yeah.
What we will say with that too, not all of the songs are rap. We do try to incorporate different music styles, ballads, poems, country going in there too, and some other multiple language songs. So just use this as an opportunity to expose them to different kinds of music, but also focusing on the lyrics. So even though we call it the Sing It station, they don't have to sing.
We have to sing it,
but they do have to write down, we say 2 stanzas. So 2 lyrics that we really liked or connected to the content.
Connected to the content, yeah. So the questions vary every time that we have the Sing It station. Although some students, do I really have to sing it? No, you don't have to sing it. But it actually creates that atmosphere of like singing thing. Remember the food chain song that the students had or 7th grade? Everybody loves it. I wish I would have attached that, but we'll save that for next week. All right. So that's those two. And the Let's Explore is actually kind of like the highlight of the station lab, because
hands-on demo.
Yeah, that would be a hands-on. This is actually where the science and engineering practices can come in, like analyzing a data, for example, or planning and carrying out investigation, or even developing or using models. So this is the Explore It station. But in this particular example, students actually were looking at a picture of the interaction happening with the cowbird nest and the oriole, right? So the bird interaction, and then they will answer a prompt, a question. So that is the Let's Explore It part. The Let's Organize has to do with like classification or matching. This is a great way for us to
vocabulary.
Yeah, I was about to say, yes, that's right. So it's more of a students trying to match. In this particular example, though, they are given kind of like a scenario, and then they will identify if it's commensalism, mutualism, or parasitism. Now, we want to move away from our lower order thinking skills, so which is why we wanted to use this station, or Let's Organize It, to a higher order thinking skills type of statements. In this case, they really were asked to analyze the statement or the interaction before they can identify the type of interaction. Now, the Let's Draw It, on the other hand, students will draw one example. So this is kind of like demonstrating what they have learned so far of the concept through illustration. So that is the Let's Draw. Right? Anything you want to add, Mrs. Watkins? I thought of students who loves to draw take advantage of this connection.
Yeah, and it's just an opportunity, again, whether that's a stick figure drawing or whether it's a really complex, multi-layer, shaded in drawing, it just gives them an opportunity to be creative. Because again,
hi.
Everything connects together. Yes, hi, Dr. E, welcome.
Yeah, I just wanted to show that. Okay, so yes, exactly, and I thought I liked that some students really really put their hearts and minds into that Let's Draw It when I was looking at all the student samples that we had. All right. And last three would be the Let's Write. So this is kind of like the essay is. I really don't like essay, but Mrs. Reyes will. But I like students demonstrating what they learned through writing. So this is the Let's Write. It could be a short prompt.
It's a short prompt, and again, 2-3 sentences, and again, just complete sentences. So again, your English teachers will thank you, but getting them to write their thoughts and just synthesize information into a complete statement is very important, not only for the content, for the write it, but also jumping to the reflect it too. Getting them to think about all the activities that we did, what was your favorite, or what did you learn, or what was something that you're going to take away with you into the future, or something you're curious about now that maybe you didn't think about before because of this activity. Exactly. And the other here is just a quick 4-question multiple choice. Yes, there are multiple ways to assess, but in this lab, we feel like each station almost does a different kind of assessment.
Yes.
So this quick 4 questions here is, do you really understand the content? Yes or no? And then let's keep it moving.
Yes. And lastly, of course, Let's Reflect is just for our students to kind of look back on what they have gone throughout those Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday during the week, to kind of like, what's your favorite among those activities that you did? And of course, this also helped us improve what we put out there from their feedback as well, because student feedback is very, very important. Now, this is just a sample of our worksheet, the Station Lab worksheet. So should you feel like, okay, we cannot do online learning full on, so we have this, it's called Lab Report, although it's not a traditional lab report. And let me full screen so that everybody would be able to see it. So this is the worksheet that we use in our station labs, and if you look at it, it's sectioned out from let's watch, read, and so on and so forth. So we put them all together, front and back of a paper, and then of course the station labs are printed out and put it in a plastic film for students to use while in their classroom. But if you're going to make a module out of the station labs that you have, so you can do the same thing, like put them all together in kind of like a packet. So that is that. Now, how are you going to translate this in online?
That was one of our questions.
Yeah, I know, right? So
we had that structure, and then we just kind of took that structure and used the Google Forms platform.
Yes, so we use a Google Form platform to synthesize what we have hard copy. So I'm just going to show everybody real quick how it looks like so that we can kind of like have a feel of what it is. So this is a sample of the station lab. So this is like the backstage. This is what you have, what I have made on the station lab. So there's still, let's watch it. So this one right here, students can actually click that and watch the video and then answer it right away on Google Form. Okay, so that's that. If I'm gonna put that in like a view in itself, so that's how it's gonna look like. And then you click next. So I'm not gonna go through it really thorough, but I will show this next week when we do the effective integration, so students can watch. So I'll just show you real quick so they can watch. Yeah. And then when they watch, after they watch, they just simply answer the questions on the blank. And then when they're done, they move on to the next section. And then the Let's Research, they need to go to a website. So that's why there's like a link over there. And then Let's Sing It. There's another video that they will play, and then they will answer the question. That's pretty much it. That's it. And, kids love it. And the only thing that we need to adjust is like the length of the station labs that our students have to do. That's why on our schedule, when we look back on our weekly schedule, we actually break down
content
into two. So
two different days. It gives them time to think about the content. Yeah. Some of them might work one day and knock it out in 2 hours straight, but other people might want to do maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, and then be done with it that way.
So that's why we broke it up into two parts. So the sample Google form that you saw earlier is actually just one, but we normally break it up into two Google Forms so that students will not feel overwhelmed, because that's what we don't want our students to experience as they navigate the station labs. Okay, so that being said, what are some of our the biggest hurdles that we had experienced when we were crafting this highly engaging activities and some assessments that we had? It's really time consuming. That is a reality that we are facing. Curating video, we have to make sure that we carefully scrutinize the video that we're going to use for our students to watch. So that takes time too, as well as creating those station lab sheets that you just saw. It's very time consuming, as well as making that digital labs. You have to adjust, you have to supply the answer keys and all that. And it's in short, it's time consuming. But
what I would say about the time consuming though, the more time we as teachers put into planning the activities ahead of time, the less questions students tend to have on how to do this, or how does this connect, or you made a typo, or whatever. Yeah. So take your time when you're planning, even though it might take a little bit more time at the beginning, and also think future forward. Like, you can use these lessons in years to come, or you might be able to share them with a colleague, or split up the workload. You do some life science, they do the earth science, and then you guys share your lessons with each other. So that way you're not doing both, but you can split and work together.
Exactly. And lastly, of course, providing feedback takes time, but make sure that we have to make sure that we provide feedback for our students. And of course, checking the responses of the students, like the Google form answers and the station, it takes time also to check.
And then again, teaching them how to use your form and teaching them the level of excellence that you want at the beginning, they'll stay to that level of excellence throughout the learning period. So hold them to a high standard at the beginning with complete sentences, complete labeled drawings, color if you're asking for color on your images, and they'll hold to that standard.
Yeah, exactly. But with time and preparation in our hands right now, especially my dear educators in the Philippines, trust in your training. You guys have been attending all our webinars with Number Bender and then with me. And, trust in your creativity as a teacher. We did not realize that we are this creative after we have, put together all these activities we put out for our students. So this is the best time for us to get out there and be open to change, because change is always good, although we don't see it right away, but it is. Otherwise, we really won't grow. And of course, our students will be stuck on where they were if we won't. And that being said, I can't wait for our next speaker today and presenter. And so, Mrs. Watkins, we'll see you at the Q&A.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Right. And without further ado, we're going to introduce our second presenter, Mrs. Beck. Hi, Miss Beck.
Hi. Good morning to all of you. I'm
How are
going to go
you?
ahead and get my slides ready. I just want to let you guys know that I have been teaching for over 35 years, and my lessons that I have are not quite as high tech as Mrs. White and Mrs. Watkins.
Oh no.
But they served the purpose for what we needed, and
Exactly.
it worked for us. So
Exactly.
I'll
Yes.
go ahead and
add the screen. Yes. And Miss Beck, I'm gonna leave the floor to you, and we'll sit back, relax, and enjoy it.
Okay, so thank you. So we were using Zoom with our students, and so when I was letting the kids in, I like to have a puzzle going in the background, something like this, and it gave the kids an opportunity to open up their mics and discuss and collaborate together. And then I could go back after I had everybody in the classroom, the Zoom, and we would talk about the solution to this and all the different thinking that went involved with it, as well as this was a good lead in to setting up equations, solving systems of equations, and also paying attention to detail. Because, for example, the first time I looked at this, I didn't notice it, but if you see this little guy down here, he's not only the value of a boy, but he also has two of these cones right here, and he's wearing a pair of shoes. So he had all these extra points. And then it also gave us an opportunity to discuss the order of operations. The kids had a lot of fun discussing it and collaborating together. And there were sometimes a number of kids working together and arguing back and forth on what the true solution was. So that was a good way to get them thinking math and doing something while I was just letting in other kids into the classroom. And so it wasn't just wasted downtime. I was new to Google Classroom through distance learning. This wasn't something I used regularly in my classroom. So when we started distance learning, I had to jump on board real quick. And what I found worked for math was I gave them their assignments at the beginning of the week, and then they worked on them as they could. And they could email me throughout the week, or they could submit an assignment through Google Classroom, and then I could give them immediate feedback. So, for example, the first thing we did each week, well, the first assignment that I always had for them was I called it Mountain Math Warm Up, but really what it was a spiral review. And what I did was I just made slides and I used Mountain Math. And if you're not familiar with it, I'll talk about Mountain Math a little bit later on in my presentation. But it was something that I had on my walls in the classroom, and we used a spiral review anyway during the school year. And so it was a format the kids were kind of familiar with, but they did it on paper and it was posted on the walls in the classroom. So to transfer it to Google Slides was a little bit tricky, but it was easy once I got the hang of it. And I could just do all kinds of different types of review problems, including even graphing linear equations, because I could just put this graph over here and then I'd put an arrow on, and then they could just bring the arrow over wherever it was supposed to be, and then they could rotate it. Usually what they did, they found best, was they rotated it first, got the slope that they wanted, and then came to the y-intercept over here. So that was one thing that I was really excited to be able to do with the kids. And then what I did each week was I left the old review questions on the slides and I just added the new ones, but I left the old ones up with the solution. So for example, if they were struggling with this one right here, this first slide, I could say to them, go back and look at slide 6 for a hint on how to solve it. And I, with all of them like that, I could just go through and show them previous slides that gave them hints, or they could just go back and find them. After another assignment that they had each week too was a course challenge on Khan Academy. And let's see here. That looked something like this. I don't know if you're familiar with Khan Academy, but if you aren't, or even if you are, each course has a couple of different challenges, one of which is called, let's give it a second to load here, a mastery challenge. And that's just maybe 6 or 7 questions that helps them master skills that they've been working on. But they also have, and I would have to show them every week to scroll down to the bottom, and they have a course challenge. And the course challenge was generally 30 questions. And it would go through the entire course level. And I would even go back, I teach 8th grade math, and I would even go back and sometimes have them do 3rd grade course challenge, 4th grade course challenge, to fill in some of those missing skills that they might have forgotten, or maybe they just didn't get it. They weren't ready for it when they were in 3rd grade or 4th grade. And now that they're in 8th grade, they're a little bit more ready for that skill, and it makes more sense to them. So I would have them do these course challenges each week to just refresh their memory. Let's see. Then also they had skills on Khan Academy. And so, like, for example, this week they were working on polynomials, multiplying polynomials, really. But we did an intro to polynomials. And this one was about writing the polynomial in standard form. And they would look at this and say, oh, this is not in standard form because it's not in descending order. This one here is in descending order. This one looks like it might be in standard form, but if you look carefully, this exponent is 3 and this one is 4. And so that one can't be, and then it's not none of the above. And then they would check their answers. And that little ding is really exciting for them to hear. That means they got the question right. And then they would just go on to the next one. Also, I would get resources from Teacher Pay Teachers, and I would have to take them and kind of switch them into something that was a little bit more user-friendly on Google. And they could do make little games out of these. And so, for example, this one, sorry, my computer's a little bit slow right now. They would, for example, multiply right here, x to the 2nd times x to the 4th would give them x to the 6th, and then they would have to highlight, they would highlight the correct answer. And then they'd come down here to the next page and they would mark off anything that was used up here. So for example, up here on this top one, it says the injury was not a stub toe. And for number 2, Dr. Alpha was swimming in the pool. So we know we need to mark off stub toe, Dr. Alpha, and the pool. And I would come down here and mark those off. And then their answer, the solution to the puzzle, was whatever was left here. And so it made it really easy for me to check too, because I could just look and see, oh, they have the correct answer down here. Or if they didn't, I could look up here and figure out where their error was. So little puzzles like that make it really easy to check. And then after I would go through, this would be like a sample lesson, and I would go through it much slower with the kids. But after I was done, then I would take questions from the kids, and then they would just ask me anything that they didn't understand as I was going through before. Some of the main resources that I used, I mentioned before, Khan Academy. Khan Academy is really great. If you haven't used it before, it has a lot of skill practice. It has assessments. It has videos. I can assign work to the students. So I can come here to this one. I can see what they've been working on this week. I can look over here at individual students. I don't want to leave this one on too long because it does have student names on it. But I can see how long they've been working on it within a certain time period. I can change it to today. I can change it to the last 7 days or the last 30 days, or I can set my own custom range. I can look at the class in general and see, I can see what their progress is. I can show the students or hide the students, and I can see where each individual student is if I go this way. Or if I hide the students, then I can just kind of see in general where the class is. And I can do standards-based grading with this as well. I can just focus on a certain standard or a certain set of standards, okay, with whatever is working with whatever subject I'm working on at that point. I can assign certain skills, and within those skills, I can see, oh, okay, here's how the kids did. Oh, I really apologize for the machine going off right there. Okay. Another resource I use too, which was really fun, is Desmos. Now, I don't know if you've ever used Desmos, but it's a free graphing calculator. Oh, that was the other thing. With Khan Academy, this is also a free resource. And it's an amazing resource. Desmos is another free resource that I used, and I could use it as just drawing graphs. I could do like y equals 3x plus 4, and then I could also do y equals negative 3x plus 4. And so I can talk about how the 0, 4 is the y-intercept. I can show how a positive 3x and a negative 3x affects the slope. I could even do y equals 3x minus 4, and then see how I can show how these two lines are parallel because they have the same slope, and how the y-intercept changes. That's another, then another great way to use Desmos. That's just one way to use it. Another great way to use Desmos is these prepared classroom activities. And with these, they have great activities all ready for you. I'll show you one real quick here that I used recently during the distance learning. And it was Match My Line. So it was graphing linear equations. And the kids would go to student.desmos.com, and they would type in this code right here, and it would give them fun and challenging questions to think about as far as graphing linear equations. And then I would get a report over here that would show which ones they did. It takes a little bit of time to load, but once it does load, when they turn to check marks, that means that they got it right. Those aren't all good. They don't all stay X's. That just shows that they did it. And then eventually they will start turning to check marks. So that's another way that you can use it. And I can look at each question and see what they are. Some of them, like this one right here. Okay, maybe not. It's not opening right here for some reason. But anyway, it does. It makes them think about how to adjust the slope or how to adjust the y-intercept. So there's a lot of really neat things you can do with that. Now, another resource that I use, is Mountain Math. And Mountain Math is not a free resource. It costs about $100 for the entire set, but I've had mine for 5 or 6 years now, and I use it every day in the classroom. So it is something that I don't know if you might want to consider. And they have a great online resource with it that will allow you to transfer the questions to Google Doc for you, really easy. And then one of the other resources I use is Teachers Pay Teachers. And some of these cost money, and then some of them don't always cost money. What I really like about Teachers Pay Teachers is I can specify it to exactly what I want. So let's see. They have distance learning suggestions, but I'm going to go here and click on 8th grade. Okay, and I'm going to go to Google Apps. And what this does is it only gives me resources that are compatible with Google. And let's say I want to do the volume of cylinders, cones, and spheres. And I can just go to here. And I can pay $2.50 or $3.50 or $17.50 for a resource, or I can sort it right here by price, ascending, and I can generally find some free resources. And I can look through here and find some really nice free resources. Okay, and then the other thing I did was I have my worksheets. I have things that I've already set up. And so what I had to do was I had to find a way to convert those into something that they could do online. Now they could just fill this in, but it was going to be really hard like that. So what I did was I transferred them to Google Slides. I found that Google Slides was a really convenient way for the kids to show their work or to write and different things like that. So like this one, I did a vocabulary thing where they had to find a translation, give me a definition of what is a translation, and then give me a diagram, a picture, a photo, or some other example. I'll show you a sample of student work on this one. And, it just was very easy for them to write out a definition of what a translation was and then show me a picture of a translation. Some people even did little things in their house and took a photo of it and then uploaded the photo to their presentation, which was really cool too. And then the other thing I just want to talk to you guys real quickly about are some things to keep in mind. So I come from an engineering background. And so as I was making my plans, I thought of the engineering design. And so I would imagine what it was that I wanted my lesson to do. I made my plans, I created my lessons, and then I tried it. And if it worked, great. If it didn't, I made an improvement on it. And I felt like even if it didn't work, that was still good because I learned something from it. And I would ask the kids, I would ask my colleagues, what worked for them? What did the kids like? How did they like it? Why did they like it? Why didn't they like something? So it gave me input. I was constantly asking Mrs. White or Mrs. Reyes or some of the other teachers how I could make things better. We worked together a lot. But be sure to take care of yourself, because it's really easy to get wrapped up into the distance learning and get locked into the computer and to forget to take a minute to breathe, take a walk, read a book, just spend some time with your family or your pets, whatever works for you. It is really important to make sure you do take some time for yourself. Google Classroom, like I said, I wasn't used to using Google Classroom too much. I knew what it was. I had used it a few times occasionally, but it wasn't a part of my daily work. And so I did learn quickly that it is excellent for assigning work, organizing work. It's good for record keeping and for giving feedback. I really enjoyed that part of it. On every assignment, I was able to give a lot of feedback, especially on assignments that I put on slides, because I could just give them a lot of good feedback. One thing we did find, some caution, is that students would occasionally try to turn in blank work. They would just click turn in. And so their parents could see that the assignment was turned in. However, there was nothing done on it. So that's something to keep an eye on. And also sometimes students would show their parents that they had done a different assignment and that it was completed, but they hadn't done the one that they were supposed to do. So those are just some things to keep in mind. You know, sometimes kids try to get away with a few things. Really important to work together as a team with your colleagues. I really relied on mine a lot over distance learning. Communicating with students was the most helpful thing for them, and also communicating with parents on a regular basis was very helpful as well. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Beck. That was really great. And I love how you showed them the course challenge in Khan Academy. That I thought that was interesting. And the Desmos, I didn't know there's a Desmos calculator. And if I do, most likely I would have used that as a student. But thank you for sharing. I hope our educators out there would also take advantage of that. And we'll see you, Mrs. Beck, for a Q&A. I'm sure there are some of our friends who has some questions about what you shared with us today. All right, Ms. Beck, I'll see you in a bit. And now we're going to move on to our last presenter, Miss Reyes. Hi, Miss Reyes.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Yeah, save the best for last, right? So, are you ready for this?
Yes, I am. All right, guys.
All right. So let's get on it. So, take it away, Miss Reyes.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Again, my name is Mrs. Reyes, and I've got 10 years of teaching experience in both the public and private school, and additionally to teaching at Magnolia Science Academy. I do teach at the University of San Diego over the summer, teaching ESL students, international students. But unfortunately this year, because of COVID, because of the closure, we had to postpone that for next year. Now, the biggest concern that we see in terms of distance learning is the learning loss. And if you think about English, there are so many components in regards to reading, writing, and grammar. And how do you maintain all of those things? How do you get students engaged to all of those materials? And how do you continue to challenge them when they're at a distance? And hopefully today I can inspire you. Hopefully today I can give you some resources that can help you to continue your high expectations and give your students the best learning opportunities that they deserve. So if you look at this picture, this slide right here, I am used to being a traditional physical classroom English teacher where I interact with my students face to face, and I like the whole tactile, the whole kinesthetic, where we're walking around interacting with them. And I provide them not just books to read that that they take notes on, but rather giving them things to hold and to interact with each other and creating that community building where they're engaged and actively involved. So one opportunity, as you can see above here, is a Socratic-like seminar where we have a soccer ball with critical thinking questions where they're asked to think on the spot and also pull references from their text. Another opportunity after we do a reading is giving them opportunities to incorporate games such as Jenga, where they compile these little blocks together, and every time they pull a block, there are levels of critical thinking questions. So these are all the wonderful things that we can, we have all of these great things, in our toolbox to teach our kids. But obviously, with the circumstances, we were all forced into distance learning. The beauty about this is teaching at Magnolia Science Academy is we have Chromebooks that are one-to-one in the classroom. And so our students were already adjusted to those, to the technical aspect of it. We already had a Google Classroom platform. So it's not like I had to teach them from scratch. So thank goodness that was beneficial. You have a quote right here that says, and this is by an American author, Gail Godwin, that says, "Good teaching is 1/4 preparation and 3/4 theater." That right there is a nod to Mrs. Beck right there. I'm glad, I hope you can appreciate that I'm using fraction for you. So in terms of this quote right here, I think it's very important as teachers who spend a lot of time in terms of making copies, in terms of creating our documents, but really what's most important is your passion, is your delivery, and your presentation. So being up on stage, whether it be in front of a camera or in front of the classroom, you're really delivering it in such a way that it's meaningful, purposeful, and intentional. So your students know that you have a passion in you. Kids will ask you the why. They sometimes, for the most part, they don't want to know the what, it's the why. And why do you love it so much? Why is it important? More now than ever, especially in America, in our civil unrest, students need to know that why. This is purposeful. So you can learn to identify the negative rhetoric, the negative form of communication in terms of politics. So you can identify the crisis, the drama in your novel, and you can have that character growth. More than ever right now during the adversity going on in terms of the health global pandemic, our kids and our teachers are going through a rough time. But if they read, understanding the themes, pulling out the importance aspect of it, learning from it, seeing the hero's journey, not just in their stories, but in themselves, they are more likely to take from it and grow from it altogether. So more importantly than anything, as a teacher, show that you love teaching, love your subjects, be compassionate to your student, and show a passion for your subject. Moving on, I do want to show some resources that I can help you prepare in terms of what you can help our students. First and foremost is your organizational skills. This is a weekly agenda for our students. They understand the expectations, and I know it's a lot to see at first glance, but students, once you adjust and walk them through the expectations, it should be clear, because again, in order to be successful, they have to understand your expectations. And at this week at a glance tells them not only what they have to do, but how many points it is valued and when the due date is and where they can seek, in terms of resources, how can they reach you? What is the password? All of those things should be a quick reference for them. And another thing that I want to point out are some resources that you can use in terms of online learning to improve their reading comprehension. One resource is Read Theory. This is amazing, and I can't stress it enough. This is a free resource for K through 12, and this is an adaptive reading comprehension to help our students continue to grow. It is adaptive, meaning it's based on each individual need of students. I currently teach 8th grade students, and not all students read at the same level. I've got some students, unfortunately, who are struggling, who are still at the 5th grade reading level. And then I've got those who are right at 8th grade, and then those who are actually at 11th grade. But how do you, when you have a classroom size of 30 plus kids. There's no way to individualize, differentiate your lesson. And this right here helps them that way. Additionally, what's so good about Read Theory is after you identify their reading level, because there is a diagnostic test on here, it provides the standards in terms of what they've mastered. It provides their quizzes in terms of the standardized quizzes that will help them. Now in America, we have state testing to hold them accountable, and it's similar. It mimics that altogether. What's beautiful about Read Theory is that the results come right away, and you can use these results. They are not subjective, meaning you're not a teacher telling a parent, telling an administrator that this child is struggling. You have hard facts to show this is your child's reading level, and it shows right here in their diagnostic test. It also shows the student's progress, and here is an area that they need to work on. This is a beautiful indication right here, and they're more likely, especially students, are more likely to see what they need to work on when they have it all written down and it's fact-based altogether. Now, another thing in terms of reading comprehension, and history and English are very similar in terms of our standards. And both history and English, we use Newsela, or another way to call it News ELA. And here they have informative nonfiction text for students to read. You can, based on your Read Theory, it tells you their reading level, their Lexile letter, and you can match it according to that. So for example, Newsela, this is, there is a charge for Newsela. However, there is a free platform as well. It's free, and I think the basic is enough for teachers. If you want to pay extra, that's where it shows you the student's progress. That's where you can see their history in terms of their reading material and also the quizzes that they've taken. But what I've done is I've went ahead and clicked an article based on my reading. For example, if I'm teaching Anne Frank's diary, what's going to come up is articles that pertains to it. That's current events, not just back in, during World War II. So that's the beauty of it, because it pertains to their lives right now. Additionally, once you get to that point and you know their Lexile, you will notice over here, there are many versions. There's 570 all the way up to 1060 to the max. And that means, hey, if you have struggling students who have a hard time deciphering, understanding what they're reading, go ahead and choose 570 Lexile, and it will generate wordings that are easy for them to read. And then also it will generate a quiz for them that will also assess their reading. Now, if you have various degrees, because that's what the ideal classroom is, then you can go ahead and print out multiple Lexiles, still covering the same content, and yet you are meeting their needs as individuals. You can always upload this in PDF file and attach it to Google Classroom. And for those of you who are familiar with Google Classroom, you will know that you can assign it to all students, or you can specifically assign it to one student. Now, I find that if a student is struggling with Read Theory, because sometimes it's challenging, I can go ahead and manually go to Newsela and assign them the 4 quizzes that they have to do a month. And again, that's your choice in terms of how strict or in terms of how you want to grade them based on reading comprehension. And this is a quiz for Newsela right here. Again, it mimics the standards, so that when they are taking the standardized test, and whether it be for college acceptance or the SATs that they're taking year to year, it mimics it. So then when they are taking it, they are familiar with the format and they are comfortable with their own judgment. And you can always pause, and share this on the screen and show them the process of elimination. Another category that I want to touch base on is a free software. I'm sorry, let me go to that one. It is this one is called No Red Ink. No Red Ink is a grammar component. Once again, that's No Red Ink. And this is also a free platform, but if you want to go to the premium, you can also pay for it as well. For our school, we do the free platform because it provides just enough right there. And this is for grades specifically, I believe 4th and 5th all the way to 12th grade, because let's face it, we live in a culture right now where students have the phone in their hands and they're talking, and when they're text writing, honestly, it's shorthand. It negates all of the grammar, and that's a culture that we live in. So we have to teach them grammar rules. Now, you can exhaust yourself by going over the lessons, or you can just assign it to your students individually, based on certain period classes that you have, or based on certain students who need a little more help overall. So No Red Ink is the grammar platform for you to use. This is one final resource in terms of the English essentials. So we talked about Read Theory, we talked about Newsela, and we also talked about No Red Ink. That was grammar. This is Membean, and this is vocabulary. This is not a free platform, but it is cheaper in the sense where in American US dollars here, it's $400. And that is for the class size, the school size that we have. We have about 400 students, so it will vary. But what I love about Membean is, in the past, when I've assigned novels to my students, I would choose the vocabulary words based on the novel. And obviously, based on the novel, that tells you their reading level, of course. But here, the beauty about Membean is it's also individualized. They start off taking a diagnostic quiz to show us what words they know, and there are multiple levels for them to advance on. And this right here shows their progress. So again, with all the resources that I'm showing you, you can deliver it to the parents. You can deliver it at at a conference with a SPED teacher, with an administrator, and these are all objective. This is what they want to see, the results overall. And with the diagnostic, you will see it at the beginning of the year, and with the progress, you can show at the very end of the year to see where the child, how much the child has grown. And the beauty about Membean also is that there is a quiz. So about every 3 weeks, after about 20 minutes of warm-up activity of vocabulary, I generate a quiz for them. And it's in a multiple format choice as well. And usually kids do well on this one because it provides them kind of a learning bank, what the words that they need to study. And again, it is individualized. And finally, I do want to mention, in addition to the English essentials, some things that I do during distance learning would be giving them short stories to read. This one is The Red Chief, right here by O. Henry. And this is called a flip book, and I actually created it myself on Google Docs, Google Slides rather, and on Canvas as well. Canvas is a site where you can be creative, and that's part of your delivery, as I mentioned earlier, giving students that visually appealing aspect of it, allowing students to understand about the author. And anticipatory is something that engages the students. What will you do to hook them? And I'll show you after the slide. Then you got the vocabulary component that will help them, aid them in their reading and comprehension questions and so forth. So I created this easy flipbook format for them to do while they're reading independently on their own. But when I do meet with them, when I have that small opportunity where we have that class as a class of 100 plus students, which is a lot, right? But not all students want to speak up because some of them are camera shy, and this is an opportunity where it engages them. I think when you teach 7th grade and higher in terms of middle school here, it's really important to entice them with critical thinking questions. With questions, it's that why again. Questions that they love to argue. Kids in middle school and teenagers love to argue. Give them topics that pertain to your short story. For example, a question would be, kids should not reenact battle scenes. Love for money blinds judgment. Children should always listen to adults. When you have topics like this that are critical thinking, ethics, controversial, they're more likely to talk about it. They all have something to say, whether they've read the text or not. Obviously, you're going to pull it into the story, but this is the anticipatory where they're thinking, finding an interest about it, finding the theme of the story, and then it kind of pulls them in to read. And during your live lesson with them, you're talking about this, listening to their point of view, and then dragging it along in the disagree or agree category. And and obviously they move it themselves as well, so it makes it interactive. This is a flip book that I created, and obviously it takes about 3 days to do, and because I'm investing in this. Ms. Beck mentioned earlier in her presentation about teachers pay teachers. I went ahead and streamlined it. Why not benefit from this? Yes, I will be doing it, using it every year because it's my material, but at the same time, why not share it with others? So Teachers Pay Teachers is a platform not only for students, not only for teachers to have to share each other's resources, but not only to get some resources to apply to your classroom, but also for you as well as an incentive. So here is my digital resource for distance learning. I upload these for those to purchase as well. And again, Teachers Pay Teachers has lots of free resources, and I encourage you to use that as well. So this whole opportunity right here is, by all means, I'm not saying that I've mastered it. It was a learning curve for all of us, and it's going to be a continuing learning curve. But what's so great about it is not only am I a teacher, but I feel I'm a student as well. And it's that growth mindset where we all have a desire to learn, and we want to be lifelong learners. Let's show our students too that we can make mistakes, but we are but that's how we learn. It's through the adversity, it's through the challenges that we become better, and that we can overcome. And if we do this together, as demonstrated right here in this webinar, if we can work together as a team, whether it be as a community of the Philippines or a community or as a team at Magnolia, it shows that we can get more done and be successful in sharing our insights.
Yeah, I can't wait to show myself out because Mrs. Reyes, thank you for really sharing with us the resources in English. I really love No Red Ink. In fact, I actually used it with my incoming sixth grader when we were in distance learning and we were waiting for the transition of distance learning in March. So I thought that is actually one resource that I want my student to keep using because it actually improves their grammar. And for the Membean, I think, is the Membean free? No, it's not free, right?
About $400. That's for the school of 400 students, rather.
Okay, so that's for like a whole entire school, right? Oh, yeah. Well, there you have it. So we actually we're going to open our floor for questions. And before we do that, maraming salamat po sa mga tumututok today from the Philippines. If you don't know, Mrs. Reyes' husband is from the Philippines. At meron po silang tanim ng calamansi. Thank you for the calamansi, Ms. Reyes, that you just gave me. But yes, and thank you, Mrs. Beck, for sharing with us about math resources. I'm really happy that that you guys said yes to my request to be with us today. And of course, Mrs. Watkins, who's always have been there with me since I started doing webinars with Number Bender, our number one supporter in Cyfriend. Thank you so much. So without further ado, let's start answering some questions that our friends in the Philippines and even here have for us. So
I have a good one for us. I've been answering some in the chat, both on YouTube and on Facebook, as you guys can look back and forth at those. But I think Erwin had a good summary one about maybe some of our questions and concerns that we have about whether our students have access to the tools or technologies at home. So he said, I'm a bit worried about how my students would be able to access all of these learning resources he's planning on using. Many of them only maybe know Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and online games. And I'll share what I said. I was just mentioning that, we can teach them these tools and technologies, but also the tip is maybe have them teach each other. So challenge your students. Hey, does anybody know how to use Facebook or Khan Academy really good? Great. Go make a video with your friends over there. Hey, does anybody really like Membean and the vocabulary? Okay, great. You go make a video over here. So give that back to the students and let them make introduction videos to their peers.
Right.
And that might be a fun way for them to learn how to use some of the tools.
And to piggyback on that, Mrs. Watkins, why can't they create and show what they learn and post it on their Instagram story? Right?
Right?
Hello, right? Yeah. And from what I have learned in the UK, they actually use Facebook groups for students to get together and actually share what they learned. So in the UK, that's actually one way for students to socially learn is to put up a Facebook group for their class. So that's one thing that I've studied from my doc class, and it feels as if that they're using Facebook, yes, but in a productive way. So I hope that helps. I mean, Insta story. I mean, your students can follow you on Instagram too, and they would really look up to you and use that platform, not only for entertainment or socialization, but at the same time they can use it to show. I think Mrs. Reyes and Miss Beck, if I'm right, Miss Wright actually had them do a project, and some of our students used Instagram as a platform to put up their history, social studies project, like the women's rights, I think, something like that. So that's one way for our students to use the social media platform that way academically. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
Good insights. There's another one here from Carl. Carl, each of us in our different presentations got to speak about some ways that we would do some assessments. But maybe as a quick summary here for our team, what are some student assessment methods that work best in the distance learning environment, utilized especially under a given coronavirus circumstance? So maybe for each of your subjects, Ms. Beck and Ms. Reyes and Watkins and White, what would be maybe your top 2 favorite online assessment tools that are free? Let's stick with free. That are free online that you feel like are maybe your favorite to use or that you've modified and used especially during this time.
For me, for math, Khan Academy obviously is a great assessment tool. And the other thing I did was when they would do a project and have to put their project on Google Slides, and I could read and actually the review slides that I did weekly were a great assessment for me as well. I could see what they remembered, what they still needed to learn, and then it helped guide my teaching, my instruction, to know what I needed to go over more to the following week.
Yeah.
In regards to English, during the distance learning in America, that is, grades could do no harm. And because we have to be mindful of the fact that a lot of things are going on in the lives of our students and the lives of our teachers as well. And with that being in mind, normally in a traditional classroom setting, by the end of the year, we would have finished a novel and they would have an essay on it and they would have a test on it. But rather than, burden them with such a heavy end of the year project and assessment, really, I can't overlook the fact that those resources that I showed you were normally warm-ups. We would do Membean vocabulary, 10 minutes in class. We would do 15 minutes of read theory comprehension, 15 minutes of no writing. Again, they were warm-ups. And so we have to understand that, let's go ahead and shift gears for a second. They're not just warm-ups, they're English essentials. So instead of doing an essay, instead of doing an end of the novel test, I went ahead and used those resources as their assessment at the end, because really it showed their growth overall.
Perfect. Yeah. And again, performance-based assessments is the best for science too. Show the skills, the science and engineering skills that they should demonstrate as they learn from a distance, and those
skills can be demonstrated, like you said. Whether Miss Beck mentioned some people take pictures of their example and put that on their worksheet, or whether they were using a video clip on Flipgrid, that's a free resource. Or like Erwin mentioned, you can post it on Instagram and their Facebook and their Twitters, and you can tag your teacher. So that might be another way, or for the students to create the content and then to put it out there and share it with others.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Do we have another question? Thank you for sharing, you guys. And let's have another question. Have you seen a question, Miss Watkins?
I'm coming down. I think one of them was just asking about younger audiences. So let me go ahead and pull them.
Yeah.
So many great questions, you guys. Thank you. Here it is from Angelica.
Okay.
If you have pupils who are still young, like 7 and 8 years old, what platforms might be suitable for them? So again, maybe the technology could either be too advanced, or maybe we don't want them in front of the technology as long.
As well.
You guys have
from what I have gathered and what I've read from collaborating with other teachers, they use Seesaw. I'm not familiar with Seesaw, but I think it's visually appealing for students with that age. I would encourage for teachers to just use Zoom meetings, because the students at that age needs more communication, social skills, and use Google Slides and put those flashing nice pictures, visuals, and all that. And I think the interaction is more important than just having them go through a Google Classroom for them to navigate on their own, because I think they need a lot of hand holding when they're at this age. And as much as possible, I would recommend a live interaction with our 78-year-old students, especially if there's an available internet connection in your area. But from what I gathered, Seesaw is the one that some elementary grade teachers use here in the United States, but I'm not really familiar with that. I'll look into that though, and I'll share it next week. Thank you for that question. Yes, Ms.
Khan Academy has Khan for kids, and then they also have a grade for skills for children from kindergarten through college. But they have Khan Academy for kids too, which is really fun and active, and it's very engaging. But if you want to keep them off the computer a little bit too, like Mrs. Watkins had mentioned too, a little less screen time, playing cards, building puzzles, playing games, reading, all of those things are so good for math skills as well as all their other skills. I can't encourage enough of game playing, playing just with decks of cards and reading books and crossword puzzles, jigsaw puzzles, Ken, Sudoku, all of those are just so engaging for the brain.
Yeah, exactly.
And I will
not just the little kids, but all of them.
Yeah, all of us. Yeah.
I like what Mrs. Reyes was mentioning, that her activities used to be warm-ups, but they're essentials, right? And again, thinking about that for all of our classes, for all of our subjects, what's that core that you want them to get to? So notice even in our science week, we had a reading component. There was a data analysis component. So we're trying in our subjects to connect to math, to connect to English, to connect to history, to help them have these interconnection points, so that even if they might be not doing work in all of their classes, hopefully each class can start to integrate some different topics and skills together that they can use across the board.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I have one question here from Paula. So she said that she has a lot of worksheets, online worksheet. Probably it's not just for science, but maybe Mrs. Beck, Mrs. Reyes could answer this. So since she has that for years and years, I'm sure we all have those resources. Since they're learning from home this year, how can I make this activity more collaborative, even if they are at their homes? So there's actually some, let's see if we can think about how we can look back on what Miss Beck, I think, have mentioned. Like you have some worksheets, Mrs. Beck, that you were using before. And what did you do to these worksheets when we went on distance learning?
Well, I started by putting them on Google Docs, but then I realized that was that was difficult for the students, and it was kind of difficult for me as well, for the students to maneuver. And I found that putting them on Google Slides really helped. And I also found that there might be 10 or 12 questions on the worksheet. 3 or 4 were just as fine on Google Slides, and it got the information across. They didn't need 10 or 12 when 3 or 4 were going to make it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And again, if you have existing worksheets, it's a matter of making that shift. Okay, how am I going to communicate that with the kids? It actually always starts with a trial and error for me. It's like, okay, I have this wonderful resource from a year ago, and it's a classroom activity. I'm actually going to use it. It's called the evolution project or something like that. So I'm now thinking about like how am I going to translate that in distance learning, on how am I going to have the students do that. Our students are really good at like problem solving. How am I going to show my teacher what I'm supposed to draw or something? And you'd be surprised. Some of them will use Google Draw. Some of them will use their phones and take a picture of the drawing that they made. And so, which is why, don't scrap all those worksheets that we might have that we know it worked with our students for years and years that we've been using them, and try to think of how we can innovate out of what we already have. We can't say that they are useless because they are on paper now that we are in distance learning, but maybe sit down on it, take a good look at that resource that you have. It might be very useful, and you might be surprised that you can actually translate that easily into distance learning. And Google Slides, that is actually one apps in Google that I would recommend for you to check out, because there are more and more teachers who are actually converting a PDF file that you might have to make it editable, which is in Google Slides.
And one thing, as we got into more complicated equations, it was getting really challenging for the kids to work with the exponents and whatnot, and square roots, as we were doing a lot with radical equations. And so they found it was easier. The kids found the solution themselves, and they found that it was easier to just handwrite it, take a picture of their work, and send me a picture of the work. The kids were way more creative than I was, and they were able to find the solutions when I couldn't. And then we could share it with everybody else.
I love it.
Listening to them.
Love it.
They'll let you know. And I think that's another thing all of us mentioned. We're all learning. The teachers are learning and the students are learning how to adapt to this new platform. So like Miss Beck said, they might come up with an idea where you're like, oh, yeah, let's do that. I didn't think about that. So let them be a part of the process. Hey, why don't you find the video this week? Or does anybody else have a better song or worksheet or interactive lab? So sometimes you can get them to give you information before you start a unit. And sometimes that could be a part of your reflection at the end. To say, all right, we finished this unit. What would you do different next time? Whether you're adding that as a reflection piece like we did in our science stations, or whether you talk as a whole group for maybe 10 minutes and or do a discussion post and say, all right, give me a better tool, give me a better website, find a different article. And they might make connections that you didn't even think about, but you now want to use in the future.
Like I said, I've been teaching for over 35 years, and I've learned more in the last 4 months than I think I did in the last 35 years of education.
That is true. That is true.
There's been a lot of learning going on.
I say that, yeah.
That is true. That is true. This isn't a question, but it is a comment. I think I lost it. But one of our friends are very thankful for what we are sharing with them. And I hope that we continue doing that. And then I think this is for Mrs. Beck. Good tips from Mrs. Beck on parents checking their homework too, on how to check if they're really doing lessons. Yes, hopefully parents will actually assist us. That is actually a reality that we have to face, because we are not in front of our students, and we don't know what they're doing at home, right? And so we really want to have that communication piece. Anything you would like to add there in terms of parent involvement?
Well, I think I'd mentioned that in my slides, that it is really important to keep that communication with parents going. Mrs. Reyes was very good about keeping that going with our 8th graders this last year, and she would just get on the phone and make a phone call with them.
Yes, phone call. Call me. Yeah, I think phone call, if anything, is one way to engage our parents if their students are not engaged in the class. And I think culturally speaking, in the Philippines, families are very close knit, and a phone call from a teacher will mean a lot for parents. And I'm sure our parents in the Philippines would also appreciate teachers constantly communicating with the family, especially during distance learning. So I'm very, very happy that we were able to collaborate. Mrs. Beck and Mrs. Reyes, just a side note, they I also teach with them in our 8th grade level for in Magnolia Science Academy. And once again, thank you so much for all your um, support today. And I think, do we still have questions, Mrs. Watkins? I think I saw one.
I think
This one. Asian Pop. She said, how about using science model, cells, body system during online lesson? Will this be effective? Well,
so. Like, where
that?
would you start? I guess a couple different things. Number one, see if you can find an online simulation version.
Mhm.
So if they can watch it happening, that might be helpful. Or number two, really look online to see if there's a DIY lesson, like a YouTube video, or like go to teachers, teachers, or make up something yourself so that they can build something and either follow along as you do it,
Mhm.
or you can make up a lesson using household items, a straw and a
Straw.
wheel and putting axles and like putting things together. So have them use what they have, or if your school's able to, provide some supplies. I know that's something we're thinking about at our school.
Yeah.
Do we make a list of supplies and say, hey, here's your bag of science materials for the month of August? Or do we give them a list and say, these are things we hope you would have around your house? So we have to be creative with that. But trying to find something online or finding a video demo that does what you want to do are other good solutions, I would say, Mrs. White.
Yes, and again, there are a lot of resources. You might be surprised once you start searching some household items that Mrs. Watkins mentioned. As simple as a different colored modeling clay can actually help students make models of the cell, for example. And for body systems too. I wish it's going to be next week. I will share some resources as well, but there are a lot of website. Biology Corner has a lot of resources for that too, for biology. So I hope that helps. And I think do we still have, we'll see some. I would love to answer all of you guys' questions, but I think
You can find us online. Connect with us on social media. That's coming up. And
exactly.
keep watching our webinar. We're here for you guys. And that's what I've been hearing and seeing in the comments. Thank you so much for those. We're sharing what works for us to hopefully make it better for you guys. And if there's anything you want specifically, or if there's a particular topic, I guess we'll have to bring in a history teacher next time, Mrs. White. And maybe
right?
Coach Greg.
Yeah, to share all of our resources.
That's true.
Different countries, but we're in the same pandemic, and so we need to figure out how we can learn from each other and share what we have to help all the children. It's not a competition. We want them all to learn. So we're here for you, and we're glad to.
Yes, we are here for you. That being said, we will continue to be here for everyone. For everyone who's watching us, because next week we are going to talk about effective integration of learning platform. But for now, thank you, Mrs. Beck, Mrs. Reyes, and Mrs. Watkins for joining me today. And it was really an honor to sharing this one broadcast with everybody. I'll see you guys in a bit.
All right,
Thank
bye.
you. All right. Bye, Miss Watkins.
Bye.
All right. So, again, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. And I hope that marami po kayong natutunan sa ating webinar today. And I look forward for next week because Number Bender and I will actually kind of like a part 1, part 2. He's part 1, ako ang part 2, part 1 sa kanya video content. Ako naman po sa integration of learning platform. So I hope magkita-kita po tayo next week on my next webinar on effective integration of learning resource platform dito lamang po sa Ginang Science Live. And for now, I'll be gone. Bye! Next week, I will be sharing with you how to effectively integrate learning resource platforms in your online classroom and how you can maximize the benefits of these learning websites. I hope to see you next week for the last June webinar of Watkins and White Science Online. Bye!